Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Mayor's Task Force meeting on infrastructure for Thursday, June 13th, 2024. And let's call the meeting to order. First, 1.1, introduction of late items. Do we have any?
not have any late items.
No late items. Okay. So could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Mr. Nicholson? Second? Seconded by John. Unanimous consent. Can we do that?
Sure.
Let's do that by unanimous consent. And adoption of the minutes. Of the May 16th meeting. I lost John here. So could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
Seconded by Michael. Okay. Any public comments?
We have no public comments.
Okay. So we'll move to 4.1, the asset management overview, and Annette Frischman is going to give us a rundown.
And just for, sorry, the camera's not connecting and we're just working on that here. Thanks, Andrew. Mayor.
Nope, there we go.
There
There we go.
Has everybody met Annette? She's a utilities coordinator, Public Works. She's been doing a lot of work on our asset management planning. I think she's met everybody. Have you met everybody?
I believe I have met everybody officially.
Okay, great. So over to you, Annette, whenever you're ready to go.
Want me to come over?
Sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to give you, from Public Works perspective, a quick overview of asset management and where we are at. So asset management, what is asset management is contained in this presentation. Where do we come from? We're in the last decade here at Oona Municipality. Where are we at? What tools are we using to make progress, and what are our next steps? What is an asset? Aside from roads, culverts, snow plows, etc., assets provide services that create value for the community. And asset management answers the questions: what do we own? Where is it? What is it worth? When do we need it to be done by? What needs to be done? What condition is it in? So asset management is a process used in decision making. It helps us care for our infrastructure that delivers valuable services to the community. It manages risk and opportunities, and it's helps to use our resources wisely. In a broader view, it's a process, it's a journey, it's an approach, a way of doing things, and above all, it's a team effort. What do the people in our community want? They want safe and sustainable services in a predictable and cost-effective manner. They don't want to see things like this that cost them a lot of tax money. The benefits of asset management to our community. By connecting the dots, it makes the services visible. It optimizes the spending, it helps comply with regulations, and it helps bring in new services in a sustainable manner. How does asset management deliver value to the community? If presented in an equation, by striking a balance between performance plus risk plus cost, we create value for our community. So performance plus risk plus cost equals value. Simple, right? But not so simple, not easy at all. So in general, asset management helps us as the municipality to maintain delivery of services, to plan for the future, to manage risk, and to budget smartly. Where do we come from? Over the last decade or even more, there have been multiple attempts at the municipality to get asset management going and to get it, to keep it going, especially. For example, what you see here is a large Excel spreadsheet that was created by a consultant in 2019. And it has a lot of information that was collected in a desktop exercise and in consultation with staff at the time. But it turned out hard to understand and hard to use for staff, especially also for staff that is new and does not have the history of how this was created. We have all the data collected, but we have not been able to get a lot of value out of this approach back then. So where are we at now? In 2022, Council approved the purchase of PSD citywide asset management software and consulting services. So we in Public Works, that is Patrick and Rachel, who's not here today, and myself, we have worked with the consultants and imported data that was readily available from various sources, such as GIS, Excel spreadsheets, and other. And we have created an asset inventory. In that asset inventory, we currently have the categories that you can see right now: bridges and culverts, buildings, fleet, land improvements, machinery, roads, sanitary, storm, water. And we have started to work, we have prioritized culverts for now and roads. Next, worked on water mains, sewer mains. So the asset management inventory in this software that we are using for culverts looks like what you can see now on the screen. It has, it captures all the culverts that we have. It shows the in-service date, estimated useful life.
How many culverts do we have?
We have 323 culverts.
And that'll grow as development happens, I'm guessing.
Yes, they become more. If you look into an individual culvert, you get the summary overview in the software that shows you also a little map to show you the location, which is linked to our GIS system, where the data comes from. And then data has been added, such as replacement cost, estimated useful life. A condition assessment has been added, which we got through a consultant. Risk rating needs to be assigned to each asset in order to provide valuable reports for replacement, for capital replacement. Such a capital replacement summary report can look like this. We have for all the culverts, this report shows a capital replacement cost of almost $24 million. And this software based on condition and risk and age can create a replacement profile spread out over as many years as you wanted to show, to give you an allocation to each year for the most important and highest risk culverts to replace. This only works if you have obviously good data and all the required assessments such as condition, risk, and risk.
Assessments, and that would be done by Patrick, like there's in-house
The
assessments
condition,
of the
so
culverts.
We had, it would be a combination. So for culverts, for example, we had some of our larger culverts, as Annette mentioned, we had a consultant that was working with us to complete the condition assessments.
Right.
And then we had more recently, the remaining culverts, which is more of the smaller ones.
Yeah.
Were done by our own staff.
Is the issue with the larger, or one of the issues with the larger one, the structural capability and that sort of thing, or like, why would you need to bring in an outside consultant for the larger ones?
We could have done that internally as
Oh,
well. It's a
capability.
question of resources.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And at the time, we were doing a number of culvert projects with this particular consultant, Webster, and they had provided us a proposal
Right.
to add on this service to their scope of work, which we decided to accept and proceed.
It's also a development opportunity for staff to learn from a professional consultant who's experienced in that type of condition assessment. So that we can start to take that on ourselves.
All right, let's hold questions.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna ask when.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Ms. Fishman,
Mhm.
finish the presentation.
Sure, thank you. The software can also, with the software, we can also create Excel or table reports about our replacement that allocates the costs, the replacement costs over a certain amount of years, as shown here. Or we can also create charts that make for a nice visual representation of replacement costs over the years. This here shows the attributes that can be captured for each asset in the software. Those are customized fields, and we've saved a lot of data in here for that we have received from the consultant, for example, that we are not necessarily all using for creating the capital replacement report, but that can be pulled for calculating the risk, for example, or just to store information as well that we might need in the future. We can also create heat maps about showing the risk distribution of our culverts. So it shows the overall risk determined by the values for probability of failure times consequence of failure. Probability of failure uses age and condition to determine when the asset might fail. The consequence of failure measures the economic, social, operating, or environmental impact this asset will have if it fails. So what asset management challenges are we facing? This list here that you can see is a list that is commonly that you can find online and is represented in a lot of asset management literature. And I believe we are facing all those challenges that are commonly named. We don't have dedicated staff that is exclusively focusing on asset management. We're all doing this to a certain percentage on the side of our tasks. We don't have, in many cases, we don't have good data or information that we need for a solid asset management basis. For example, for the culverts, it was fairly easy or feasible to get a condition assessment. However, thinking about the water mains or the sewer mains, it's all underground. It's very hard to know for each segment of water main or sewer main what the condition actually is. And sometimes we do not even for sure know the age when this particular segment was installed, or what the material even is, without opening up the road and looking at it. So we often have to go by best guess or by knowledge of staff that has been in the municipality for a long time, or have to dig deep into files and spend a lot of time to get better information. We have more infrastructure deficit than we can financially resolve. It's a common problem in many municipalities. We have demands from citizens which are not always aligned with our recommendations. And we have elected officials with 4-year terms, and their vision of what is significant might change over the time, which makes it difficult for asset management to keep on the same path. Asset management is much more than implementing and using an asset management software on which we have focused in the last year. We have learned how to use not even all yet of the software, but the most important features for us we have learned how to use. But it takes actually a lot of departments. It takes political leadership to be involved. It takes a strategy, a policy to determine the big picture and to distribute the knowledge of what the big picture is and how we can reach this. What Liam has just brought up, the question in-house or external expertise for driving and developing asset management, as there are pros and cons. You build capacity. If you do it in-house, you learn by doing. You create knowledge. You can use internal knowledge better. You may not have the experience that consultants have. Staff turnover might result in lost knowledge during the asset management process. If it's not a sustainable long-term approach, municipality might not be able to continue if external resources are removed. So there are pros and cons for how to drive asset management in-house or externally. What is the role of council in asset management is maybe important to communicate to. Council sets the strategic direction, determines the level of service, and needs to allocate the resources for it. But in order to do so, council needs information about asset performance, risk, and cost to set that direction. So asset management on a broader level helps us to do the right thing for the right asset at the right time. How do we proceed from our efforts to get good data into our asset management software? We have some ideas for next steps, but they are not set in stone. It's just what you see here is just more or less it's brainstorming how we could proceed, but it would definitely be important to get direction from political leadership on what is needed, how to proceed. A policy to outline commitments to best practices and continuous improvement. Asset management plan phase 1, the core assets, including inventory of assets, current levels of service, and costs to maintain the levels of service. That is what we've been working on right now. And then a next phase could be the same as phase 1, but for all assets, not only the core assets. Phase 3, building on phases 1 and 2 by adding proposed levels of service and lifecycle management and financial strategy. The asset management plans, once they are established, should be updated every five years with progress updates and provided to council again. This was my quick overview and status update, and
Thank you very much.
questions.
It's a very sobering presentation and report. There's so much there, but it's wonderful to actually have that now, especially at this committee. And so thank you very much for preparing all that. And yeah, does anyone have any questions? Michael, Mr. Florendo, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, and thank you for the presentation. And that's a lot of good information. A couple of really quick questions. One, what asset types are currently included in your asset management plan? Is it strictly right now culverts and bridges, or have you looked at even roads and sections like that? Are you starting to populate that? Was that part of Webster's work, or was there other doing that, or were municipal staff doing that themselves? And then the other question was with regards to risk. Did you look at, in particular with culverts, did you look at, say, road importance as well? Because as a component of risk, because if a culvert were to go on one of the main roads as opposed to let's say a smaller local road, even though the size of the culvert may be larger on the smaller road, there's different kind of importance factors to it. Just curious about those two items.
Yes, we have we have used Webster only for the culverts. The next focus was on roads. We have a good revised inventory for all our roads, and have assigned a road failure risk factor to each culvert, depending on its location and the importance of the road, how many properties it serves, for example. And so the next focus after roads would be on water mains, sewer manholes. And I've been working on the collection of data still for all of these assets. They are mainly coming from our GIS system. However, there's only very basic data in our GIS system for many assets. And the segments available to pull from the GIS data are not always useful for asset management, and they need to be redone according to installation date or whatever makes sense for asset management purposes. So it's a lot of legwork at the basis necessary before the actual, condition assessment and risk assessment can happen in the asset management software.
Thank you.
Did I answer all your questions? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
My Patrick.
Yeah,
can
no,
add.
that was good. Thank
Did
you.
we include the, in our risk framework for the culverts, did we include the road classification? So, or we were trying to do that at one point. The intent for the, consequence of failure portion of the culvert risk was to look at, we do have a parameter in a database called road failure risk factor. So looking at various aspects of a culvert that relate to the road being more likely to fail. So if you have uncontrolled flow of water, so essentially no bottom in the culvert, and that would be a 1 point for that parameter. If you had voids developed under the road base, that would be another. If you had structural issues with the culvert, like the top of it is caved in or something like that, that would be another. So it's assigned a rating, and that's really the predominant item. And our intent was to have the risk based on, well, how high is that score? So how likely is the road likely to fail at that location? And then also have the importance of the road itself, right? So the road classification as another, and you can assign different weightings to these different criteria that you use to build out risk framework. Still working on.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a multitude of questions.
All right.
Michael, are you familiar with this software program that they're using? Have you had any experience or exposure with the?
Not this one in particular, but I've seen others.
Okay.
And it looks like it has, the components of it for an asset management database. I mean, you can go to very convoluted and complex ones, but we don't have the assets needs for that at this point.
Just curious. And forgive me, these are going to be fairly naive because I was trained as an architect, not as an engineer, but I relied on engineers, had to. Insurance, is there any insurance issues related to municipal protection, insurance coverage on these assets? Is that an issue to?
Insurance is a separate thing, and most linear assets aren't insured or insurable. So MIA, Municipal Insurance Association of BC, is looking into whether the reinsurers will consider insuring some of the underground linear assets. But when you start to look, so it could be a very profitable insurance underwriting category for them, because we're talking about billions of dollars.
Right.
But the region in and of itself is, well in excess of $20 billion worth of underground linear assets.
Right, so I guess it defaults to the municipality to have contingencies in place.
Yeah,
If you
you
can't buy insurance.
Yeah.
My dad was in insurance. He always said you could buy any insurance if you were prepared to deal with the premium.
That's right. Yeah, but there's I don't believe that there's any reinsurers that are supporting.
Okay. Could you go back to the slide that had the phases, the phase one? I think we should last. So. No,
Yeah, you just
it
have.
was the very last one. It had that one there, yeah. So I had just written this down as you were speaking. What would it timeline related to those roughly, and I guess globally thinking, what would it take to both in, I guess, would it be possible to capture all the assets in one go, like combine phases 1 and 2, if you had the resources, if money wasn't an object. Perfect. Is that possible? Like, would that give you a leg up on moving forward if you could combine phases 1 and 2? And would that help to, I guess, anticipate future? Any?
I guess you could, I mean, you could invest your time initially on getting the inventory established for everything.
Mhm. Yeah,
That would be one approach where, what you're talking, about, combining phases 1 and 2.
yeah.
Versus
Like
the way
if
it's
you,
laid out here is more, we get our inventory established the way we need it to be for, for the the culverts and roads and,
right,
major utilities.
Yeah.
And then we start working on, the subsequent steps to have the useful information that we can use, looking at what's the capital replacement need
Yeah.
of those assets. So it sort of gets you to that place where you want to be for those most important assets sooner than if you focus, on.
oh, I got
We want
you.
to get our whole
Right.
inventory done for everything before we take the next step on anything.
Mhm.
So it's, I guess it's a bit of a decision about how.
Right, but if you had like $150,000, I'm just pulling that out of the air, would that help to expedite things and get, bring in the resources that there already is I guess there's a consultant attached to the software as well? Sort of, I think you.
There is a
intimated that.
consultant that
Would-
had they help with initially
Yeah.
with setting it up and bringing in the
Yeah,
data that
would-
is readily available.
I mean, it seems to be an expedient thing we need to really act on, and I'm just thinking, what would it? First of all, is it possible, and would you want to do it, or, I don't know. Not really a
Yeah,
question, more of a
I mean, we
comment.
We could bring in external resources
Yeah.
to expedite steps, any of these steps.
Yeah.
And.
But that would have to be-
Cost of that.
Yeah.
I also do really want to echo what Annette was saying in her presentation about like the benefits, pros and cons of the internal versus external, because when I arrived here, we were just wrapping up having an external consultant who was paid quite a hefty amount of money through a grant program.
Yeah,
And it was clearly evident that when they were presenting all their information, it wasn't landing well and it wasn't usable.
mhm.
And there's some good value that came out of it, but the bulk of it was not what we needed. And so I think for us, it may be better to have them go slower, but
Yeah.
we're learning it
Right,
and embedding it within the culture of the organization.
okay. Last, if I may, or are we?
One more.
So the 300 culverts intrigued me, because when I told Bob Turner, I was talk to Bob Turner and told him I was gonna be on this committee. And I said, and he's involved in the Bob Turner's videos, and he's involved in the conservancy, and I said, what do you think about it? So one of his thoughts was, so I'm just gonna draw like a right of way, and let's say there's a road in it and there's a culvert. I'm answering my own question as I'm drawing this, and I guess this is private land and this is public. Sometimes, I guess sometimes the road is over here, right, on private?
Sometimes.
Is that, and that's in the risk chart? To mitigate, that shows up somewhere, I'm guessing, in the risk. I hope, wait, like, is it a risk then?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay, well anyways, Bob was talking about the water, going to, let's see, the ocean's over here or whatever, slowing that down to allow it to get into the aquifer to recharge stuff. So if we've got 300 of these opportunities, I don't know, you obviously can't force private owners to do it, but it's just a thought to pass on to you, that was one of the, if we have 300 opportunities because the water's wanting to get to the ocean or the lake, whatever, to slow it down.
Right, there's a term in rainwater management called slow it, spread it, sink it.
Yeah.
And the
Anyhow,
thing about Bowen is we don't have a lot of direct discharge to the sea. And where we do, it's pretty limited, like the cove is one of the only places where we see a lot of surface water, rainwater being direct discharged without the opportunity to infiltrate. Some people will point to Seymour Bay as another place where there was heavy ditching and redirection of surface water into culverts. But having lived out there for the last 4 years, in my experience, it has the ditch out front of my house. I see tons of water go in it, but I never see any flow. It just goes straight into the ground.
anyhow, let's see.
It is a good thing to do, but I don't know that it's a big concern.
We're more focused on the risks to the road itself and getting the water through
Yeah.
safely. You could, you know, you can always build in other elements like other objectives.
Right.
And that kind of relates to your level of service. If your level of service is to, you know, keep everything intact, then, you know, the road sound, you know, water flowing through the culvert the way it's supposed to, then that's how your, you know, objectives will fall out of that. But if your level of service is that we, you know, if you add on to that, we want to ensure that 50% of the water gets put back in the ground, then that's going to lead to, you know, different ways that you would upgrade or rehabilitate your infrastructure.
All right, let's keep moving here. Mayor Leonard, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And through you, the first thing I'd like to say, you know, Annette and the Public Works team, thank you for presenting. I'm sorry I couldn't be in the room today, but this has been really helpful to see sort of some of our asset management planning in action. Can we go back to the slide that Don had us pull up just with the ideas for the next steps? I missed some of the answer because I had a 5-year-old in the room here demanding a snack, but I did see some of this here. I'm curious. So is the plan to develop some of these stuff? Like are these pieces going to be coming forward to council, or are these pieces that staff is looking for direction on? And maybe that's a CAO or director question.
Yeah, these are pieces that we're working on. The first two, we do have a draft of a policy that was done a bit of work on that we're going to be bringing forward to council. Most of our effort has been on phase one, which is for the core assets, getting the inventory established and taking that information and building out the types of guidance that we would get on our capital replacement programs from that.
Okay, great. So that's actually ongoing. It's not just in the hopper as an idea. We're already moving on that.
Right. Yes.
Okay. And so in what ways then, just given that from a strategic point of view from council, as well as knowing what we've, you know, got in the community and some of the risks that were even identified in this presentation, what you know, what ways can council support this in a robust way, or can this committee support this sort of work in a robust way so that we were able to get to, you know, a phase 3 and where this is actually embedded in part of our culture, so that we can start to do these 5-year updates that are envisioned at the end. Like, is this, I guess my question is, like, is this possible in this term?
I hope so. That's our aim, and that was identified by council as a strategic priority. When we had our strategic planning sessions, and I guess that's the biggest thing from council is identifying that and recognizing that it's a priority and a key strategy that we have to follow through on.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's exactly what I like to hear. And then, just to staff, if there's pieces that need to be brought to council or that are looking for approval or that require more support from us, by all means, bring it to us at our quarterly strategic planning sessions, or they need to be surfaced to a regular council meeting. I think asset management, just as a practice and as an embedded culture in the municipality, is going to be such a key piece for us moving forward, given some of the challenges that we're seeing right now.
Yeah. And in terms of how this committee can help, I guess that's a bit of an open question. We brought this information forward today and are having this discussion. Essentially,
Right.
The answers to all of the questions.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a good point. So it is an open question, and I would hope that this committee could serve as a starting point of dialogue for if there are elements that staff would like to update the elected officials on, or would like to get some of initial community thoughts on. This would absolutely be the forum for it. But it's also great just to be having this conversation. So whether it happens at the committee level or whether it happens at the council level, being able to have Annette or Rachel or yourself, Patrick, in the room and let us know what's going on, I think will really help connect this to council in a regular and ongoing way. So this has been a great first update, and I look forward to more of them. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor Leonard. Councillor Saunders.
Thanks to the chair. Just briefly, this is just this is an opinion based on personal experience with software like this and projects like this. That it's taken a long time to get us to where we are. And I'm glad we're moving down this road. I think it's absolutely vital for the future, and given the infrastructure deficit we're facing, every day that we don't have this is going to cost us money down the road. So in my mind, and this is responding to Don's question about combining phase 1 and phase 2, I'd personally be dead set against it. I've seen organizations try to do that, and it just delays the process, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to go a mile wide and an inch deep. And I think what we need to do is we've already identified the core assets, go all out, let's get that piece in place, and then we move on to the other ones. I think from my mind, that's the only way to do it, or we're just going to get bogged down in 2 years from now. We're still going to be having this discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. I have a couple of comments. If Ms. Frischman, if you could put up a slide that shows all the colors of the rainbow.
Heat map,
Yeah.
which isn't the map.
Oh, yes.
So if I'm understanding this right, everything that's in the upper right-hand corner is very urgent.
Yeah.
And I guess my question would be, is all of that work already in the budget funded underway? Or where do you sort of draw the line, and will you come to council and say, we're falling behind where we wanted to be and we might need more resource?
Well, do you want to go to the bar chart?
Yeah.
So,
There we go.
that where you have the $5 million plus of work in 2024, that's those culverts at the red portion of that
Okay.
heat map. And obviously we can't do $5 million worth of culverts in that year. So it's, this is one sort of output you get from this type of software, but then you have to go and look at, okay, well, then what is our plan for executing that $5 million worth of culvert replacement work and spreading that over the subsequent years, and then that's gonna push the other bars further out. And that's where you might go and look at those risk assessments a little more closely. And come up with a plan. So to get to the next part of your question, yes, it is something that needs to be brought to council, where this is an output of our asset management planning. And then this is how it's going to translate into action. So the first step of that is we're doing a lot of culvert work this year. It's being driven, in the case this year, a lot of it by planned utility projects. They have to be integrated. But then we need a plan, or we need to build this into a more detailed plan that actually says, okay, well, what exactly is happening in 2025? We know what's happening in 2024. It's, it's maybe a fifth of that bar. And then this is what's happening in 2025, 2026, 2027. And that's where the rest of that bar is going to go. So that's how those two things kind of relate.
So, yeah, so essentially the asset management planning then feeds into the 5-year capital plans, which then comes to council for approval. And,
Okay, so I misunderstood, because I looked at that bar and said, oh my goodness, we're gonna do all that in 1 year. And as you say, we can't. And so I was just wondering, why, what is that really telling us? Because we're not gonna do all that in 2024. So it's telling us that we should be doing it.
It's telling us that, like, based on asset management best practices, that all of this infrastructure should be replaced now.
That's coming out of the software. Is that
So
correct?
that's what the software is picking up, but then you have to take that and combine it with
Right.
reality. And we haven't really gotten into these tools so much, but you can run scenarios where you set limits on expenditures. Then it would build out a different scenario for you.
and what it can do is you can essentially tell the tool to defer these works and it'll push that out. But the more you defer, the greater the risk.
There must be a point at which it stops, so that you can only defer. It must stay.
Well, because then it starts to fail and then you have sinkholes and then you have road closures and
Greater cost.
yeah, and greater costs. Yes, yeah.
Well, the good news is, if I understand this right, in the next couple of years, those bars are very low, so we can definitely pile some stuff in there. But it's gonna be a challenge, clearly.
What's the horizontal line there?
I imagine that's the average.
I think that's the average of all, but you can make that horizontal line. I believe we can make that an annual budget.
Hmm.
So if we have $1 million a year to spend, then, then that can help to look at.
It looks like it's like 600 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that would be your annual contribution to the, but as Patrick's alluding to, we have to address that big bar first. And then we can get to this sustainable annual contribution to maintain at a reasonable level.
Yeah, I mean, if you could schedule your replacement plan over 20 years, then maybe $600,000 a year is what you need to plan on. But we need to look at the next 5 years plus as being substantially higher than that because of that backlog. That initial bar.
right, so this is really gonna impact the 5-year plan starting 2025.
Well, it already is impacting the 5-year plan in that we have been spending a lot of money on culverts past couple of years and this year. And that's gonna have to continue for quite a number of years.
Right, so you said about a fifth of this first bar is gonna get done, so that would be $1 million roughly, it's getting done this year.
It's actually more than that. It's the culverts that are. Yeah, it's more like 1.3.
Okay. And for subsequent years, does that line represent what we've actually budgeted for those?
No,
Subsequent.
that's just, this is just an output of the software and that's just an average.
And it's
So-
based on like the time frame that's been put in here, just for the purpose of showing how the software works and what charts it can produce is from 2024 to 2045. So depending on what time frame I enter that, it gives me different.
But in our 5-year plan from starting 2024, we are allocating in those future years about $1 million a year.
Yes.
So that's what's in there now.
It's in there now.
Okay. Okay, any other questions?
I guess you could do the same instead of culverts if you put in roads, right? You get a print, something coming up.
Yes,
Yeah, that's the idea, is
That's
that
the
this is
idea.
one asset category,
Yeah.
you would have something similar for all of them, and then you'd be able to also generate aggregates. Where you're combining those assets.
So if you could bring those to the committee and to council as soon as possible, that would be great.
Excuse me. Are you directing staff now?
I'm just saying if.
There's a movie called it.
Is to have this kind of information for roads,
Great.
water systems,
Thank you.
sewer.
All right, if there's nothing further, let's move on to 4.2 with plan discussion, and I'll turn it over to Mayor Leonard.
Could I interrupt just briefly?
Sure.
Mr. Chair? Sorry, I apologize, but I've had a long-standing 4 o'clock Thursday thing that still has one more week after this, so I have to get out of here right now. This should be the last time this happens to me though, so my apologies, but I've got to bail here.
Thank you, Councilor Saunders.
And I also have to go. I think I mentioned to the committee beforehand that I'd have to.
We didn't even know you'd be here, no.
Thank you for that presentation. Very good.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, John. And thank you, Annette. This item, I would just suggest that we table, given people coming in and out. I'll circulate some work plan ideas by email to the committee if that works for everyone.
That would be wonderful, Leonard, given the timing and a few departures. Okay, then let's move on to 5.1. BIM capital project update.
Okay, I didn't produce an updated spreadsheet. But I can comment on what's, transpired on some of these projects since the last time we got together. Do we want an update on the Cove Bay water treatment plant? Is that?
Purifix?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, let's take that in closed.
Full closed.
wait till close for that, okay? We do have, for the multi-use path, Artisan to Charlie's Lane, we do have, some higher costs in our pre-tender estimates from the consultants. And that's really relating to the only way to do this. The ravine is just, the terrain is just too difficult to build a path. The road has to be realigned, it has to be relocated to the south. And the costs of doing that are significant. So what we're planning to do is to build just a portion of that, the off-road portion. so that we can use our grant money this year. We did ask because we also got a grant for doing the next piece from Charlie's Lane up to Craft Lake. We'd also applied for some substantial other grant funding through the Rural Transit Solutions Capital Stream, which we haven't heard anything about. So essentially, we've kind of got, we don't have enough funds to do all of this work. So we're gonna have to do some smaller pieces and then apply for some additional grant funding to the rest of it down. The numbers, we'll update this before we have our next meeting, but it's probably instead of 1.7, it's closer to 2.2 for that section. This path, the artisan to Charlie's Lane. We do have the for the tender process on the Blue Water, which relates to the Bowen Bay well upgrades, the Blue Water water main replacements, and the Eagle Cliff Cold Bay water main. That tender is, we've extended it. We were in our conversations with contractors, there wasn't the level of interest and the number of firms actively bidding this job that we would have hoped for. So in efforts to recruit others and get others on board, we've extended the closing until July. So that's, we felt, given the financial pressures and the likelihood of having to pare back the scope of work in Blue Water in particular, the most important thing for us is to get the best prices that we possibly can. So that's something that we've done. The design work is underway for the wastewater outfall replacement. We've also gotten the design working and value engineering process that's gotten underway with Liberty. So that's in progress now as well. And
Is that for the public works, sir?
for the public works service yard, yeah. And the Carter Road Bridge replacement, they're starting to mobilize this week, bringing some of the materials over to get the pedestrian bridge installed before they start work on the main structure. And then they're on track to start that June 24th. I'll save the Cove Bay Water Treatment Plant update close meeting. That's see the road rehabilitation. We've got one of the culverts has been completed, and we're going to do the remaining four for the end of June. We've got contract's been awarded to BA Blacktop to do our road paving work, and that's going to start. They're scheduled to start July 8th with the milling and then road prep and paving the following. That's about it for update. Next. I'm not talking about the community center. I can have other committees for that and leave that to me.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brand. Any questions from committee members? So the higher cost for the, I guess what I'm wondering is, do you have a map that shows the section that we were hoping to work on that we're not going to be able to work on?
I can provide a map.
And it is from Charlie's Lane to the corner.
What we'd applied for we applied for grant funding to do, we have a grant to do artisan to Charlie's Lane.
Right.
We can't afford to do, we can only afford to do part of that.
Okay, that's,
We'd
that's
ask,
just my
we'd
question.
ask the grant agency whether we could take the other grant that we got for Charlie's Lane up to Grafton Lake. We could use that money.
Yeah.
To finish Charlie's Lane portion, and they weren't amenable to that. So we're gonna have to do a smaller part past Charlie's Lane and then apply for additional grant funding to fill in the gaps.
All right. Any new business? Let's move on to 6.2. Can I have a motion to move to closed meeting?
So moved.
We'll pass that by unanimous consent. Anyone opposed? That carries unanimously. And
So, info items, I've just pulled extracted sections from regular council meetings. I do this for all the committees that I think might be of interest to this group. So here I've got very sad story at the top, and then we've got Eagle Cliff and Cove Bay, roadworks, award of tender, sewer petition results. Just generally I troll through and see what you guys might be interested in. Those are linked.
Oh, great.
sorry. I don't think any of those are a surprise. So, thank you.
Here it is on.
Okay, so, we didn't do question period. And
Nobody?
nobody, no questions? Okay. And the next meeting is Thursday, July 18th, 3 p.m.
Are we adjourning?
We're adjourning the open meeting.
Yeah.
And can I have a motion to adjourn?
So, we adjourn the open meeting.
Okay. Second? Anybody?
I can second it.
Thank you.